I like to have matching monitors to go along with my vintage PCs. A Tandy monitor for a Tandy computer, an IBM monitor for an IBM computer, and so forth. And ever since I restored a Zenith Z148 PC about a year ago, I've been looking for a Zenith monitor to go along with it. And recently I found one on eBay, and the seller had best offer enabled on the listing, so we negotiated a reasonable price and I bought the monitor. That matching Zenith monitor is only a 12-inch monochrome composite monitor, so it's not that big, but still, I was expecting something like this medium Home Depot box to show up, and to my surprise, this is what showed up instead. Something a lot smaller and bulgier than I expected. That's something you definitely don't want to see when you're having a CRT monitor delivered to you. A box that's barely any bigger than the monitor itself, and one which is bulging at the sides and at the top. It's a little bit longer that way, but I would expect the CRT to be more squarish than that. It doesn't have a particularly long neck to it. The one good thing is that there are no loose shards of broken glass inside, so at least the CRT didn't get smashed. But that does not necessarily mean it escaped without any damage. So let's open it up and see if it survived without any great damage. Luckily, this was only being shipped to me from New York State, and I'm in New Jersey. So it's a neighboring state, so it didn't have to travel a very long distance to get here. So that could help prevent damage. Now they did use bubble wrap, but I doubt that's enough to really protect it. The CRT monitors really should be double boxed, even if you do use bubble wrap. So, we'll see what we get. There's a number of layers here, so it's, I don't know, maybe this really is a unusually small monitor for its screen size. I thought I heard some plastic cracking. Hopefully that is not the case. Oh, I do hear these loose pieces inside. Yeah, that's not good. See, even all these layers of bubble wrap, and it still can get damaged. Yeah, I don't like the sound of that. Oh yeah, the bezel got cracked. Hopefully the screen itself survived. Yeah, that's not good. Now I don't see a dark spot in the middle, so it's hopefully the case that this CRT is still holding a vacuum. And you may think bubble wrap is good for protection because it's easy to pop the bubbles. But when you build up multiple layers of it, it gets harder and harder, and it actually doesn't have a lot of give to it. So any hard shock to the package is just going to get transferred directly to the monitor or whatever else you have inside the box. Whereas if you have something like soft foam, you can see how much more flexible that is, and it's going to do a much better job of absorbing impacts rather than transmitting it to the contents inside the box. I took some photos of the damage and submitted a return request on eBay, and I immediately got a full refund without needing to return it. So at least that's good, but it's still a shame to see a monitor like this get destroyed. even if it's really nothing special. I mean, it's just a standard 12-inch monochrome composite monitor, so it's not like some monitors that use a proprietary interface and are very difficult to find. I got scared when I looked closer and saw these dark splotches on the face of the CRT, but that's actually just dirt that can be cleaned off. So there is still a possibility that this picture tube did not get broken, and at least that part of it might be salvageable. In case I find a monitor that is physically good but has a weak CRT, I could transplant this one into it to make another monitor work properly again. I turned on the power switch on the back of the monitor, set the brightness and contrast controls to about halfway. I have it plugged into this power strip, and I'm going to turn it on and see if I get any signs of life out of it. And if something starts going horribly wrong, I can immediately turn it off. So here we go. Now we may or may not get a raster on this with no video signal going into it. But let me try adjusting the controls. Ah, we do get a raster. Doesn't really look correct, but at least it's some sign of life. Now I connected it to the output of a Handycam displaying color bars. So I'll see if that shows up on the screen. Of course it will not be in color because this is a monochrome screen. And hey, look at that. That's actually not too bad. And the bandwidth is wide enough that I'm actually seeing the dot crawl of the color encoding because it's not filtering that out. So that's actually pretty good. Not bad for a free broken monitor. There are some adjustments on the back. Let me see if those work. Okay, that's vertical size. These lines here look like they may be part of the vertical blanking interval, so I'll adjust that until they go off the screen. And then this one is horizontal positioning. It looked pretty well centered already. Then finally this one, I'm not sure what that one does or if it's even working. Horizontal width. Yeah, I think this one might be broken, so I'm turning it and nothing's happening. I removed all the screws. Now I'm going to take off the cover and see exactly what kind of damage is inside. It really is a miracle that the CRT didn't get smashed because these two mounts for it are completely broken off, while the two on this side are still intact. And wedged between the picture tube and the circuit board are a whole bunch of shards of broken plastic. The picture tube doesn't say who made it, but it lists an EIA code of 462. I looked it up and it was made by Philips, but on the yoke of the CRT it says ZRC, which stands for Zenith Radio Corporation. The electrolytic capacitors on the main circuit board were made by Nichicon, and there are no Rifa capacitors on this circuit board, so it's not going to go up in smoke like the power supply of the matching Zenith computer did. And I don't think that horizontal width control is actually broken. It's just stiffer turning than the other two controls because instead of a potentiometer, it's actually a slug and a coil that you're turning when you adjust it. So it takes a little bit more effort to adjust. Here are all the broken shards of plastic I've collected so far, but amazingly, the entire rear frame of the monitor survived with no damage. So this is entirely intact. And down in there, it actually says Borg Warner and Dow. So maybe they had something to do with manufacturing this monitor. There's a better look at those controls on the back and the information sticker. It's Zenith model ZVM1220. They also had the ZVM1230, which was the same thing with a green phosphor, and the ZVM1240, which used the MDA interface to connect it to the computer instead of composite. And it's a little hard to read the stamping, but this one was made in March 1987. And I noticed in the brochure for it, the color of the cabinet is listed as Office Tan. So according to Zenith, old computers aren't beige, they're tan. I carefully removed the picture tube and electronics to see if there might be any hope of putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. This corner looks like it may be repairable because there's just a few large chunks of plastic, which I'm reasonably confident I would be able to glue back together. But this corner in the front here, there's this one big chunk here, but then it pretty much disintegrated into little shards of plastic. And even the mounting posts for the CRT, I doubt I would be able to gain any structural rigidity to them, even if I was able to piece it back together. But at least if I can get 3 mounting posts for the CRT out of the original 4, I would call that good enough to put it back together. So here's the progress so far. It doesn't look pretty, but at least the frame is back into one piece, more or less. And I do have an idea of how I can try to fill that in, because those parts of the plastic there were just too pulverized to try to piece it back together, but at least cosmetically it's mostly back together. I just used standard super glue for this because this corner is no longer going to be structural. The parts were just too far gone to try to rebuild that mounting post for the CRT. Next I'm going to work on this corner. Actually, I was able to find another piece of the puzzle, so that makes an even smaller hole I need to fill. To put back together the broken pieces of this corner, I'm going to use the Loctite plastics bonding system for hard to bond plastics, because I had good luck in the past using this to repair the plastic carrier for the head of an 8-track player, where regular super glue just cracked apart as soon as I tightened down the screw. Well, this is still holding fine after several years, so hopefully it'll work fine for this monitor as well. Well, everything fit together perfectly when it was dry, but when it came time to glue it together, this last piece here, as you can see, didn't quite fit right. I think what happened is that this bonding activator partially melts the plastic, and what didn't help is that I forgot to apply it to both parts, so there was about a 30-second delay between applying it to one half of the broken piece and applying it to the other half. And the melting action of that bonding activator must have distorted the shape of the plastic, so by the time I put this piece in, it didn't quite fit right. But I tried to reinforce it with some more glue. And besides, I don't think the CRT actually contacts this piece up here. That's just structural. The piece that the CRT actually fits against is down here, which did not get broken. So hopefully these 2 posts will hold and be in their correct position when it comes time to reassemble this. Now I'm going to fill in this chasm with JB Weld just to try to reinforce it as much as possible. Major progress on repairing the Zenith monitor. I got the CRT and circuit board reinstalled. On the corner where I glued the broken pieces back together, I filled in that void with 2 entire tubes of JB Weld, just to provide more support for those pieces, because I didn't want to just rely on the super glue. So that's all back together, and so far it's holding the CRT. And on this corner, which took the brunt of the impact, where the screw hole that was supposed to hold the CRT was too far gone to piece back together, I decided to repurpose the screw hole for putting on the cover for supporting the CRT, because obviously it's more important to support the CRT than the cover, which is just a decorative piece of plastic. So that's what I did there, and I dremeled out the cover to give room for that screw. Don't laugh, but I ended up using plastic wood to fill up the hole in the case and to patch up this chunk that was missing. It doesn't look pretty because I still need to sand it down, but I really just wanted to see how well this would stick to the plastic and how well it's going to hold up.
You ready, people? Let's see how this works. Oh my God. I think it might work. Is the water gonna boil?
Well, it takes about 10 seconds to see if it heats up.
This is fun, I fixed it. I just fixed a microwave for $15, bitch. All by myself.
The monitor is all back together and looking pretty darn good, especially considering it was on the brink of destruction. I currently have it connected to my Tandy 1000 just to have some test patterns to display on it. It has a really nice amber phosphor display, which this camcorder is not doing justice to. It looks more yellow on video, while in real life it's a bit more of an orange color.
So it's 3:30 a.m. 3:30 a.m. I mean, who on earth wants to get up at that hour?
And there's the final result. The Zenith Z148 PC, set up with its matching ZVM 1220 monochrome monitor. At this angle and distance, you can hardly even tell that it was smashed into pieces during shipping and glued back together. I added my little Epson dot matrix receipt printer as the perfect finishing touch.